Hello and welcome to our episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am absolutely delighted to be welcoming to the studio Carl and Nick from CoBa. Guys, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks Toby, yeah, good to see you.
We've been planning this one, hatching this one for a little while now, so it's great to have you both into it. We've been hearing a lot about CoBa in the office over the last year or so. Sounds like you're on a fantastic journey. We've got a lot to cover in today, from culture to investment to the story to everything you've been doing to change the game, and it's a really exciting sort of phase of the business that you guys are up to. So we've got the CEO and CTO here of the business, lots to cover all the way through, so let's kick it over to you to introduce yourselves. Far away.
Great, yep. Carl Hasty, CEO and co-founder of CoBa, which stands for Connected Banking. We really kind of got the business going about 17 months ago, and prior to that I've been in payments and FX and risk management all my career, pretty much 17, 18 years.
Yes, I'm Nick Simpson. I'm CTO and co-founder at CoBa. My background's slightly different, actually. I spent a lot of time in investment banking. Started off at Deutsche Bank, there permanently.
So many do.
Yeah, no, so many do. Then started my first business, actually, 2006, called Finlytics. Started that, had a great adventure doing that, and eventually came up to today where I met Carl.
Fantastic. And so how did that happen? How did you two get together?
So we'd done some work together in the past, but what we did actually, so we were in stealth mode for a couple of years where Nick and I did a bit of a discovery phase with banks and UK corporates and businesses to really validate the proposition before we kind of set it up.
So talk to me about that concept, because I think it's really interesting that of when and how people talk about it. Stealth mode is something which you see on LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
And you see people sort of sat there waiting for it. Sometimes people sort of jump too early, and I think that's always sometimes been a problem where people say, right, we've got to get this, we've got to get the proof of concept out, we've got to run, we've got to be out there, etc., etc. And other people, I think, sort of wait and as you've just spoken about, sort of get that feedback, get that thought, speak to people, etc., etc. Talk to me about the concept and the thought process behind stuff.
I think so. It's all about identifying the need. Yeah. So you can have these great ideas and use great technology and things like that, but really you've got to understand what actually is the client need out there. For us in particular, they're obviously banks, but then these banks have clients and they have the actual need. And what we did, we looked at the market to really see how these banks met the end client need, and that's where we saw the opportunity. We saw you got all these new fintechs popping up, providing great services with a great UI. But the more traditional bank, they provide some great services, a very broad reach, but actually how they interact with their client is actually quite limited. And that's where we saw the opportunity about connecting the client to the bank itself.
And how did this, when you talk about this and the pre-stealth mode side of things, and you two having worked together, what's the sort of eureka moment saying, right, let's get something here and let's start up? What was the thought process there?
Yeah, so following the discovery phase, so we wanted to validate it. We understood what the needs and challenges and pains were from a banking perspective and a client perspective, but we wanted to actually validate that. So following the validation process, we then got a discovery phase live with Lloyds Bank clients. So we got access to their clients, and we were up and down the UK doing that, and that's where we were actually able to hone in the offering. Off the back of that, we actually got a deal with Lloyds Bank, so that was kind of the for us.
Proofing. Case in point. And that worked really well for you. So it's been Lloyds, and that's helped build the business and sort of take it to where we are today. Right?
Yeah, they've been a great partner for us to start our journey. They really have. I mean, as Carl mentioned, they gave us access to their own clients. So rather than us trying to search ourselves to get all these different businesses, they gave us exposure to a very broad range of business. Also for them themselves, we could actually work with them to understand how they want to present themselves to their clients. Every bank is different, and one of the key things for Carl and I is to make sure when we build this solution, we're not actually just building it for that one bank. We actually want to build it as a, as they call a true SaaS platform that can be used by different banks and different clients. So that was part of our journey as well, to really understand what we had to do to meet that. But I think at the end of the day, it was not like building a product at the side to then hopefully go and sell it. We were actually building a product based off true requirements for the end user and also for the bank.
I speak to a lot of people who've been starting and go on the journey of building businesses, etc. And I think this is something I talk about quite a lot on the show, that I'm fascinated by the backgrounds of where people come from and what sort of role they've been in before and what sort of prompted that sort of play. And that sort of product journey, I think, is an incredibly important part of it. And we've seen more and more founders, I think, come from product-based backgrounds, and product-based backgrounds to me is effectively, let's go out and really understand our customers. Let's really understand what people are looking for. And I think what you said there is really important about the ability to almost understand that sort of that necessity and recognise that people are unique and people have got different challenges. And I think sometimes it's like, right here, if you go back to the enterprise days of technology within the financial services market, it's like, here's our enterprise product, you shift to deal with what we're talking about. Legacy technology is all about that sort of stuff, right? But the hyper-personalisation of personal digital banking and digital processes mean that all of our customers are looking for exactly that same personalised process. I think it's a really important thing that you guys touch on there, right?
Yeah, we were. We were very fortunate with the way that we went about things. So we hadn't actually built anything before we did the discovery phase of Lloyds clients, and then we managed to get a deal from Lloyds off the back of a PowerPoint presentation, and we got investment through that as well. But what that meant is that we had the opportunity to build the platform. We were funded, but we built it with clients. So we've continued to build it with clients. We built the initial release that we did. We're now doing releases of new functionality and solutions every 30 to 60 days for Lloyds. But in between those releases, we work very closely with the clients. So the clients are actually testing it before it goes live to ensure that it is solving those pain points. So that way we end up getting a solution out that we know is going to work.
Tell me some of those pain points that you've experienced, like you've been talked about. What sort of is the feedback from customers? Because I think this is such an important and interesting part of it, right? So you're literally working with those customers as it's coming through. There isn't something here which says, right, here's our product, go and do it. It's let's build that out. What are the sorts of things which they're talking about which have been the issues?
So fragmentation of systems and product sets. So if you're a UK business and you're with a bank and you hold your deposits with a bank, which most of them do, to access all the products and services around that, on average you have to access anywhere between 3 to 4 different platforms just with one bank, plus telephone and email. And also those customers on their side have multiple systems, whether that be an ERP system, an accounting package or Excel. So what we do is we connect all of those systems together. We help them transfer information over to the bank as well. So all of the workflows that they have, which are normally manual for buying FX or making a payment or getting lending, we can automate those workflows directly for the customers.
And that has such a big impact, doesn't it, when you're talking about those sort of issues that people are talking about. Lloyd, and I'm interested in the Lloyds piece as well, because traditionally some of the things that people struggle with at startups is getting in, through the procurement aspect of those big institutions. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had that sort of I know that feeling when it comes through. But that's a pretty marquee sort of company to have as your first client, particularly when you're saying it and you go back to the the PowerPoint that the sort of changed the world, etc. A must have been a hell of a PowerPoint, so that's a whole other episode on this. But B, tell us a little bit about that journey, that process.
Yeah, I mean,
on the procurement side, we had to go through a lot. So I think what's interesting is that a lot of fintechs want to work with banks. We were quite fortunate in the way that, firstly, we've both been previous founders, so we had the luxury of being able to sit around and wait for the bank to get the contract sorted and so on. Whereas for a traditional fintech, for a younger founder, maybe not quite having the funding that we had, it may have killed them. This deal, waiting. We were very lucky that we had that luxury. But we had to go through a lot. We had to meet very, very high security and governance levels. In my last business, we had 150 people. I think we had about 25 policies. We've already got 51 policies, and we're now at 23 people. So you can understand the level that we have to go to.
I think also over time as well, it did become very naturally a partnership. So we weren't, because we didn't actually have a system, we weren't going in there trying to sell a system. We were going to sell an idea and a concept, and we wanted to work with them to evolve it. And I do think it was a two-way process. I think they sort of matured the way they thought about how they were servicing their clients, and for us, we were evolving our ideas as well. And I think that's what really worked. It didn't happen overnight. We engaged probably for 1 to 2 years before we actually closed the deal. So very long lead time. But I think the end result of it, by working together, we both knew what we were getting into. Ourselves working with them as a client, and also for them. We're a small business. We're now performing a fairly critical function within that bank. Albeit for a part of their client base. But I think on the back of that, everybody had the confidence to move forward. And I think working together really makes that difference. difference.
Yeah, I think that's a really important aspect as well to mention that, isn't it? Because those partnerships, those are early partnerships, both as you talk about the first clients and the first investors, and both as it may come through. That sort of combination and focus of both wanting to be in the same sort of point in the same direction and both be looking to sort of solve the same problems is really critical. So that sort of relationship, it's a 2-year burn. It's an incubating relationship you're developing there. Did that come across through people that you both knew already? Was it something there that was a cold entry point? Did you have stakeholders in the whole process?
Yeah, we had some connections there, but as banks go with their restructuring all the time,
Course, yeah.
I think we went through 6 sponsors by the time we'd actually got.
But that multiple
started
sponsor thing is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got
miss that point.
Yeah, you've got to manage the stakeholders.
Yeah.
I mean, doing a bank deal, working with a bank is a big job.
Yeah.
Try and run many of them in one go is quite difficult. You do have multiple stakeholders from up at C level through to mid management, and down to the people on the front end, and also the tech business. As well.
And so, from a CTO perspective of this product journey has got to have been fascinating, hasn't it?
Yeah.
As you're sort of there and you're building your team, you're seeing various different parts of it that sort of develop as well. You're going on something there which is fed back from the customer, as opposed to here's something here which I believe that I've built and needs to be adapted by the customer. And this is more something there which is taking feedback. So that must be a really interesting sort of play for you.
It's amazing. I'll tell you what, it's very rare in your career you get a blank sheet of paper and say, right, start here. Particularly in an environment where technology is rapidly changing.
Yeah.
We've gone from what you call monolithic applications, these sort of enterprise apps, now to what is called microservice architectures, hugely scalable, big data, and then now AI as well.
Yeah.
And that takes you up that blank sheet of paper now to say, right, design it. It's never a better time to do it. So we're really fortunate when we started. So for me, technology is a real enabler. But people is key. So we're now a team of 22 people. We've managed to tap into some great resources. We have lots of experience, 20 plus years developing microservice architectures, following lots of best practice and patterns out there. It's all about scalability. It's great having a tier 1 bank, but the reality is we could be rolled out to millions of clients. So making sure from the ground up that we've designed and we built our product to support that scalability is key. But I have to say, people's amazing. We're in a hybrid environment where we ask people to come into the office 2-3 days a week, which is great. But when everybody is in the office together, it's a great buzz, a great feeling. Lots of innovation, people around a whiteboard, talking about challenges. How do we do this? How do we get through that? And it works really well. But also on the other side, to be successful, we can't just be successful ourselves. We have to work with the bank as well, and the bank needs to be successful. And I have to say, I think this is where it's really worked. Anybody who's dealt with a bank, there's always challenges. Integrating with a bank is very, very difficult. But I think, again, we've taken the attitude of rather being just a supplier, trying to work with them. It sounds a bit pageant. I don't mean help them, but working together to actually get through the problems and understand what the challenges could be. And I feel that's what's made it really successful. And
that's kudos to those guys as well, because I think it's one of those things where sometimes that sort of relationship can be very sort of standoffish and almost like I always say we bring in loads of technology into our business, and the ones where that succeed the most are the ones where you have the team that come in afterwards and really work with it to make sure those products are working within that. And I think sometimes people miss the point that there it is, the sale's been done, and now it's like you assume that's going to get work within the business. But it's that sort of partnership afterwards that's so important.
It is, and I think Carl highlighted some of the business sponsors that we have, which have been amazing in terms of taking us on the journey. But I have to say, look on the technology side, there are key individuals there who own these platforms who have to be on board, and do you know what? They've really supported us. They recognise the challenges. They recognise that we're a startup as well, and the fact that we're building all of our our software and also our compliance processes as well. And I think because we've all gone into it with a realistic view of where we've managed to succeed. And I think always think one stat to really highlight, we closed the deal, I think it was August 2023. The target was to go live in April 24, and we achieved that. And that wasn't just getting a bit of software live, it was going through all the compliance, building the software, integrating with the bank for a client to book a trade through our platform that executed through Lloyds systems. It was a huge success, not just for us, but for everybody involved.
Great feeling though as well.
That's amazing feeling. Amazing feeling. Amazing feeling.
About that, you talk about that sort of camaraderie, you talk about getting a team together. And I think it's really interesting as a sort of forming team that you guys are creating over there, and sort of 22, 23 people. Getting those people in there who are dealing with proper challenges, sort of really interesting work, doing all that sort of stuff. And I know that you guys are really fastidious about getting the right people on board and building the right culture. I take that from experience with it all. But I think that's so important, and I'm a massive champion of that side of things as well, because sometimes it's like the recruitment process and the onboarding process and the hiring process almost becomes, it's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the technology and getting all that, and it becomes a sort of sideshow.
Yeah.
But when it's the main show, and when you think, right, we want to get this right, we want to surround ourselves with the people there who's going to have super talent density left and right of us. We're going to see people there who are encouraging us to be better. There's going to be people in there who are bouncing off each other to solve these problems. That's a great thing. And I know that whole concept of yours has been designed and really thought about, and that, you know, people and culture, whilst, you know, sometimes something that people say at AGMs every now and then, it's very much the DNA of you guys, right? So tell us a little bit about how you've designed that, why it's been such an important part of it, and what that looks like as it rolls forward as well.
So, I mean, our team are very important. It's our best asset.
Yeah.
And also, you know, we looked at offshoring, but we've onshored everything.
Yeah.
So far, we're with a key team that can deliver.
What made you do? Because that's again a really interesting part of it. People look to, you know, the nearshore side of things. You know, there's people moving to Portugal. There's, you know, we look at everything that's there on other areas of outsourcing. What made you decide, well, we want to keep this close to home?
Probably a good place to answer that, because it's probably more to do with IT. A lot of the, obviously, IT roles can go offshore.
Sure.
I've offshored a lot in my career.
Yeah.
I remember when I started at Lloyds Bank, a very big part of that role was putting teams out to India and maintaining the function. And offshoring does work. But for us, when you're building a new product, you know, there's a lot of coming together.
Yeah.
You need to work very closely with the client, and actually you need that overall control.
Yeah.
So we decided to go for the model of onshoring the core resources, making sure they're there. But we need economy of scales. We realise we're going to be rolling out to multiple banks. We're going to have lots of integrations, customizations here and there. So we need to scale as a business in terms of resources, but also making sure it's financially scalable as well. You know, we don't want to pass on too high a cost to our own clients. So therefore, we see a model where in the future, a lot of the integration work will probably look at an offshore model, but keeping that core build close to the heart of the company.
Yeah, those mixtures are important, and I agree. When you're there at that sort of storming phase, that's where it's a really important thing to have people together and sort of be solving the problem together. And I think, you know, when you talk about the hybrid thing, there's lots of obviously press at the moment about 5 days back from JP Morgan's and everything like that.
But I think there's another side to it though. We've got to recognise a lot of our clients do actually outsource. You know, so India's a main place, you say South America as well, and we recognise that as well. That's why we see a lot of our integration teams now being in those other locations, because the reality is the IT teams don't exist in London or New York or Toronto. They actually exist in these other areas. So for us, it's key actually to be able to outsource at the right time.
And tell me a little bit more about this, the sort of, you know, how you describe the culture, why it's there. I think, you know, so many companies get this bit right at this sort of stage that really allows them to flourish.
Yeah.
When you're purposeful and you work with intent around culture of a business, what does that look like for you guys? How have you designed that? Have you gone about it?
So we believe it's super important. Successful companies do it early doors. Some do it later. It does make
and it will evolve as well, I guess.
Yeah, it does evolve. Yeah, it does make things a bit more difficult, and when you do it early doors, because you need to apply it to your recruitment process and so on. But what we did, we had such a successful year last year, so we actually worked with the team to build our culture and values, and we spent a lot of time really understanding what made us successful last year as a team, and the team built these values together. So they categorise them under CoBa, which is being creative, one team, bold and action-led. Okay. But these elements they're all things that we're already doing, and that's what makes us great. So we wanted to retain those values going forward. We want to make sure that we use them in the recruitment process. New employees that are arriving understand that the success of our business is built off these values. Yeah. So they go quite deep within us.
I think that's such an important element of building a culture, and it's sometimes like, this is who we are. You fit into what we're talking about, and this is the words that are on, you know, above the door and all that sort of stuff. But so that co-creation from, you know, we've done workplace awards now for the best part of 7-8 years and spoken to hundreds of different companies about this. I think communication is the absolute hub of it, of getting it right, particularly when you're talking about a different world now than pre-COVID, particularly when it's not quite so easy with everyone under the roof every single day and all that sort of thing. And I see these values that sort of mean something, and those values that mean nothing effectively around it. But when you can drill those things, when they're co-creative and people have had that input into them, and when they do become part of the hiring process, when they do become part of the promotion process, when they do become part of the review process, that's where I think they can really be embedded and people actually know what they are and adhere to them, as opposed to just saying this has got nothing to do realistically with what goes on behind closed doors. How do you get that living and breathing, particularly with a new, what's still a relatively quickly scaling team?
Yep.
A team there that's sort of coming together and it always feels like dog years, doesn't it, when you're at the start?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But when you think about it realistically, and you're talking 17 months, there's no time really to get to, but it feels like there's a team there that is part of a business that would have felt like they're together for a lot longer, that will resonate and do that sort of stuff, and had that impact into it. Is that something which you think feels important about how you put that together?
Yeah, but I mean, we have live examples of how we've followed our values in the past. We celebrate them every quarter. Yeah. So the team vote for someone who's won the value, and everyone has to give an example of what that person's actually done. But the underlying element is communication. I think you referred to that.
Yeah.
So, for example, in our last town hall, we had external resource come in, and we did a session on communication that fed up into those values and collaborating with each other. So, I think it is about measuring it and understanding what success is, and getting everyone to celebrate it. But then you've also got to provide people with the underlying tools to be able to do it as well.
Yeah. And you guys have been on this journey, as you said before, and you've built businesses, as you said, 150 people, etc. It's actually been part of major institutions and seen probably the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of what that looks like at various different phases. What do you want the company to feel like from a culture perspective?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, obviously inclusivity is key. So I think I want everybody to come to work feeling there's an inclusive environment, and most importantly, somewhere where they can perform the best of their abilities in terms of what they do. I think it's down to Carl and I to give them opportunity to do that. We have amazing opportunity at the moment through our relationships with Lloyds Bank and other banks that we're talking to currently. And then it's really allowing those staff to really thrive in that environment. What you find with technologists, sometimes it's about using the latest tech and things like that. But I think for us, we've distilled it more into presenting people with, right, this is what we want to achieve, this is the problem space, these are the clients, speak to the clients, understand really what you want to do. And then, we'll get behind you, we'll support you to deliver the product. And I think that's the key thing. I think Carl and I play very much a supporting role. It's interesting how it's changed over time, because if you think about it, when you start a business on day one, it's not like we don't have these roles. We have all these roles, but it's just Carl and I doing those roles. And then gradually over time, we bring all these people in. And I think...
chisel out.
it's exactly. And do you know what? Sometimes it's actually very hard to step away.
Yeah.
So I think there's numerous instances where I've stayed very close, maybe a bit too hands-on. But I have to say the sign of a great team is actually, do you know what? We have the confidence to step away. Yeah. And I proudly say now, do you know what? I'm not completely stepped away because, I want to keep my hand in there to a certain degree. But I have confidence in my team.
Yeah.
I feel that they're in control. They know what they're doing, and as I say, we've got an excellent team that's delivering an excellent product. So it's very much now for Carl and I to support them. It's down to us also to grow the business. We're looking at an investment round at the moment, so it's key for us to bring in more investment, grow the team, and increase our capability in terms of what we can do.
We'll circle onto that investment, because I think it's a really interesting time for people to be gaining investment. I think it's a good time for that to be happening at the moment. So I'll come back to that in a second, but I just wanted to sort of touch on that and touch on the fact that you guys are deliberate in who you're bringing into the business and making sure it's the right sort of hire. So what is the right sort of person for you? What does that look like? What do they bring to the party?
Well, I think we need them to be able to demonstrate the values, how they collaborate with each other. So it's really important that we understand them. Our recruitment process is pretty difficult. I think Harrington staff done well, but they also you guys have lent in and understood our culture and values and what we're trying to achieve.
I think that's really important. So to cut in on that, the feedback I get from the guys is it's a company who they love working with. And I think that's a genuinely important thing. I could look back for 25 years of my career, and those businesses, I was out for lunch actually with someone who 20 years ago I helped put 150 people into his business over the years, and it was a great catch up. Hadn't seen him for a little while. He's done very well with another business that we've helped out as well. But you just get that sort of thing, and it's nostalgic to sort of see it, where you're going through that same sort of journey and you're invested in that particular company. And the feedback from those guys is they love working with companies that they can be excited about, that they can feel part of the team with, that they can bond with you guys about, and have that sort of great feedback. And that's universally, whenever they've got something in there, they love working on those sort of things, and they get great feedback from the people who are coming into it, no matter whether that's the first frog that you kiss or a few further down the line. it's great that they're doing that sort of thing and
Yeah.
feeling that
Cool.
way as well.
I think it's about relationship, isn't it? It's a bit, like working with yourselves and your team. Again, it's another partnership. It's how we deal with our client. It's not supplier sort of relationship. It literally is, right, we work on this together. We've built this problem. We've got this need.
Yeah.
How do we solve it? And we've had a great experience going through that, and hence we've got a great team. But yeah, we do set a high bar in terms of recruiting, and I think that really helps because for us, it's all about the quality of what we do. So we're very vested in that. But also our process is a little bit different as well. Rather than having, say, tests and things like that, a lot of it's just about meeting people, talking, and actually, understanding people's aptitude.
And that's what it comes back to the values piece, isn't it? I always think that if you've got that alignment of the people, the rest of it you can sort of, and obviously there has to be an element of competency, which I'm sure that a conversation can work out. But sometimes you get so involved in whether someone does or doesn't pass a test, and what sort of small cock up that they might have made at some sort of stage, which could be eradicated really easily with the attitude that they bring. I think that sort of is a really refreshing way of looking at it.
I think also it's important about diversity as well. You find, especially a lot of programmers, different people. And everybody has a slightly different approach to work and how they interface with other people. You find a lot of programmers may not actually find interviews very uncomfortable as well.
They hate,
they hate. They can.
The biggest part of why someone will move quite often in the world is they just don't like getting in front of people, and you can understand it. It's not their speciality. So I think when people understand that and aren't looking for someone there who's going to be Barnum and Bailey in the interview process, but absolutely terrible once they've arrived.
Yeah, no,
it's going to be a different way of looking at it.
And that's exactly it. And I think that's why hopefully we definitely test people when it comes to interview process, but we like to think that we do it in a comfortable environment, open and honest conversation. We like just getting to conversation and debate and talking about things, and then you find the right people.
Yeah, and a good team that's going from it as well. So let's go back to that investment point. So it's an interesting sort of phase of the business's growth at the moment. Great partnership with Lloyds up to now. You're starting to grow and scale. Let's talk about what the future looks like and how this sort of investment comes together, because it's been a pretty brutal time for raising investment over sort of 23, 24 after the sort of heyday of 21, 22. We're starting to see interest rates improving.
Yeah.
We're starting to see more appetite. I've had 2 VCs on the show at the start of this year talking about venture, winter turning into venture spring. More and more encouragement from that sort of world about where it goes. It feels like it's a really good time at the moment to be doing that, particularly when you've got proof of concept, particularly when you've got a good business, particularly when you've got a business that's growing furthermore from there as well. So let's have a look at what that looks like, who you're looking to partner with, what the investment piece looks like for you, and where does it go, and what's the next steps for CoBa?
So all good questions.
15 of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catch those.
So we have strategic investment with Lloyds.
Yeah.
I think strategic investment for us going forward is going to be always ideal.
Yeah.
If we're going to work with banks, it's worked so well, this partnership that we've had with them. They're getting a lot of value out of it on the valuation side, but also on the product set side that's been released to their clients. So we're definitely up for more strategic investment. I think the landscape's quite interesting now. I think it's actually more suited to our business model, and what I mean by that is that you've been able to raise off the back of maybe client numbers, users on the platform, where now that market's kind of returned to profitability. The VCs are looking at profitability, and our business model is really based off that. We are, so we've got very, very good revenue coming in already. We don't have to raise right now. We have the luxury of that. So we're raising off our own back in order to build out the core functionality further, and we've got a lot of opportunities in EMEA and North America, and we're starting to build a bit of a team there. So we want to invest in that to be a lot more active. Since October, we've been in a position to start doing this because our solution was live with a tier 1 client. It's been rolled out to hundreds of clients, going into thousands as well now. So now we are starting to get a lot of success metrics off the back of that, so we can see the platform work and it's a viable solution for that space. So timing's perfect for us now.
So bright, bold future in terms of where that looks. And what does that look like? If you can sort of crystal ball the next 2-3 years, where do you see the business going?
So our plans to bring on another 3 to 4 banks. Geographically, we don't really mind where. We would like to work with them strategically on the investment side as well to do that. Our core functionality, we would like to, ultimately, every product set from a business banking and commercial banking perspective we would like to offer within the platform. So we're looking at payments, and we're going into lending as well as probably the immediate solutions.
exciting stuff. And from a product perspective?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to that. I mean, obviously technology plays a big role. AI is out there.
Yeah.
We've got the building blocks now in place, so we now want to start to leverage the AI. But AI in banking is a little bit hard. You've got to be quite careful how you use that with the end client. But actually, you can use it in the bank for that view a lot easier. So we're exploring that at the moment.
Feedback from that, because that's another interesting point, isn't it? Because there is not a day where AI isn't mentioned in pretty much everyone's vernacular at any sort of stage, and there's a lot of excitement around it. But also when it comes to financial services, for obvious reasons and regulatory, there's still a lot of scepticism around it in that hype cycle. I think this industry has often lagged behind other areas for obvious reasons again.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a great opportunity now, particularly when you're looking at the massive pressures of ever increasing cost and ever decreasing margins to work out efficiency and productivity and everything we're talking about. And that's got to come into play with it there. So do you feel that that's going to be something which is really adapted and...
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think, rules like consumer duty, regulations, it's quite hard to innovate with AI at the moment on the very end user side for the client business. But if you think about the data that we've aggregated together within the platform, from the bank's perspective, they can then access that data and leverage AI to identify trends and actually how they target, where they want to go to. But the key thing here is it's not just, I guess, enabling the bank in inverted commas. It's really allowing the bank to provide a better service to its end client, but through using AI. Yeah. So at the moment, it's our sort of toe in the water, if that makes sense. You've got to get the building blocks when you're a new business, and that's what we've worked on now. The next bit's the evolution of our products, and that's where we do see the AI starting to play a part, but it'd be in a very controlled way.
Yeah, and you guys have intimated this all the way through this conversation. It's that experience part of it, for the user experience part of it for the customer. And I think the very fact that that's from where you've started as a company, that makes it so much easier for you to then go out there and do that, because, like I say, every bit from the way we use our watches, to the way we use our phones, to the way we look for information, everyone is looking for that instant gratification. And the more companies can come in there and realise that and work with customers to do that and morph and shape the product to a bespoke manner to each different company, recognising that to me is the future of where it goes, and it feels like it's exactly where you guys have said as well.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, you find a lot of people who run businesses, they want to run their business. Yeah. It's a classic thing to say. They don't really care about the whole financial aspect, but it's important. Yeah. It's the oil in the machine. You need the money, you need the working capital, you want to manage your exposure. So the more a bank can provide to its end clients to help them do that, the better. And that's really where we fit. We're working with the banks to give that to their end clients.
There's an interesting piece there where you talk about efficiency and AI. I think I was reading the paper this morning about these morph statistics in the paper uses. So it's like 1 in 4 startups are going to invest more in AI to improve efficiencies because of the cost reductions in the budget, etc., etc. What it didn't say was, I think it was 1 in 3. What it didn't say is that 67% of companies out there aren't going to be doing that. They're still going to continue with their growth plans and all that sort of thing. But that efficiency is very much
you can spin it in multiple ways. I mean, the other thing is also people get very focused on what the product provides from an AI side. But actually, you're right, it's about the whole process. How does AI play a part in our development process? How can we make it more efficient? Exactly. And it's definitely playing a role. I mean, I still truly believe we're a long way away with AI replacing developers. Yeah. You need that innovation, you do need that experience, particularly when you're dealing with end clients. Yeah. AI has not got that experience. But it does make things more efficient. It makes it more efficient in the design process, when we're modelling things, a lot of the documentation as well that you need to put together. It can really enable you on that side as well. So for us, it definitely helps with the efficiency.
And it's a reshifting of those people as well. When people say it's like the replacement of developers, those developers sort of morph themselves more into AI based. This blows my mind all the time when you have this conversation about, this isn't about people's jobs being taken and then just being obliterated, but this way that people there who are twiddling their thumbs wondering what to do. Yeah. It just shifts it into becoming more efficient and how people can utilise that technology in different ways.
I mean, I have to say, look at Excel, all right? How many people have actually had jobs off the back of Excel? Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? It's actually generated a lot of jobs rather than taking jobs away. And actually, do you know what? I do see it in a similar way. But again, it comes back to the recruitment process. You're now looking at people who understand how to leverage AI, where it should be used, maybe where it shouldn't be used. Yeah. What are those guidelines? I think also for us as as a business. You know, we talk about our policies and our compliance. You know, we're dealing with banks. The bank has its own data. We have to keep a very clear separation between use of AI and our end clients' data, which we do. But there's lots of things to consider. So it is a game changer. But you're right. We see it enabling people, not taking people away.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I've seen over all of my career, there's lots of people out there who perform, unfortunately, very mundane jobs every day because it's more of a manual operational task. You know, AI now is helping remove those sort of mundane routines so people can actually focus on the value add that they can provide. And that's, for me, the upside of AI.
I think if you look at the report from the World Economic Forum that came out recently, it is littered with jobs. You know, it's the fastest growing jobs up to 2030 that are in this space. I think number 2 is FinTech engineers, number 1 is data engineers.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what we're talking about within it. And when you look on the other side of it, the ones that are dropping, they are very manual, very functional, very clunky sort of jobs that probably aren't the most interesting things to be doing in the world. So again, it just allows people to look in a different way and work out where they're going. Yeah. I can be talking to you guys forever, and I know there's a wave behind the camera to say get on with it, Toby. So I'll come on from there. So look, I love. My favourite thing about this show is where you're talking to businesses at this sort of phase of growth for what you're doing. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. As I say, the feedback from everyone we've been involved in has been superb. So thank you first and foremost for that. For people who are watching this at the moment, want to get in touch from an investment side, want to find out a little bit more about getting from a bank who want to find out more about this and work out how you can help and work with them and partner with them. For people wanting to join the business, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, probably through myself, unfortunately.
This is the way the chiseling comes in.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, you know, LinkedIn, connect us, send me a message, and it will go to the relevant team member.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, great having you both on the show.
Thank you, Toby.
Thank
you very much.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.